Making a living off your passion is tough, especially in niche areas like hybrid production and videography, but it is possible. Over the years, I've found ways to merge client work with content creation, turning projects into sustainable revenue streams without burning out or sacrificing creativity. Through the Filmmaker Alchemy YouTube membership on this channel, I'll show you the tools, strategies, and mindset shifts that help me grow. Whether you're a freelancer looking for balance or a filmmaker seeking independence, this is your chance to learn and grow. Become a member today. What in the world is a Tographer? Well, if you've been around this channel for a while, you might know that my name is Strons, and that's what this channel used to be called, was just my name. But over time, I kind of realized I want to show other people, feature other faces, so it's not just all about me, it's about the other people I work with, and you'll still get mostly just me, but I thought it was a clever way to do a little bit of branding updating. So instead of just using my name, again, I'm Strons, but Tographer, the channel, I just really want to evoke the way I like to shoot, because I kind of have come to this conclusion that I don't want to tell you what you should do. I just want to show you what I do, because I like to shoot video and I like to shoot photo. And if I can take photography and combine it with cinematography, cinematographer, photographer, and just kind of say, well, Tographer, that's good enough. That's something different. And it kind of makes you scratch your head and go, what in the world's he talking about? Of course, video is a part of that as well. But cinematographer, photographer, I imagine there's other people out there like me who like the hybrid model of production. Because at the end of the day, when you're out there shooting video, especially with a hybrid camera, but sometimes even when you have a bigger, boxier cinema camera, inevitably you're going to need to take a picture at some point in time. If you're making a video, chances are you need a thumbnail. And that requires you to snap a photo of something, and usually multiple things, depending on what the nature is. And inevitably, someone's going to ask you, hey, can you take a picture of this? Hey, I need to get photos of that. And so being able to do both in kind of the same kit, the same package, is what I love to do. There was a period of time where I was shooting with the Ursa Minis for that premium cinematic documentary production, the built-in ND filters, the exceptional dynamic range, the ultimate resolution. Not quite, but you get the picture. The Ursa Mini and the Ursa Mini G2 are great cameras, and I love them. But whenever I needed to take a picture for a thumbnail or for an article or for some other reason, hey, can you snap a picture? I didn't want to just pull out my iPhone. There's a way to make that work, but it's not really quite my style. I want a camera that can take a proper photo. And at that time, I would go grab the 5D Mark IV, and that was my photography camera. And I would bounce between the Ursa Mini for video and the 5D Mark IV for photo. And I got to the point where I was saying, this is just silly. This is stupid. The Ursa Mini obviously is a terrible photography camera. I think it technically might be able to snap a photo, but that's certainly not what you would want. There's no stabilization built in. There's no IBIS. There's no autofocus that's reliable or good for photography. And then same thing is true of the 5D Mark IV. That camera was so crippled when it came to video features. You can't shoot 4K unless it's like super uncompressed, these gigantic file sizes. It's just very cumbersome and clunky for video. Obviously not mirrorless, so that was a limitation with the lens mount in terms of what I could adapt. Certainly couldn't really do anamorphic or anything like that. Back in those times, people were making the 5D Mark IV work for video, but it was not my preferred model. It's a great photography camera, not so great for cinematography. So I was bouncing back and forth between the two, saying, this is silly. I'm bringing gigantic Ursa Mini batteries, and relative. Things have gotten smaller over the years, but for that time and even by today's standards, the Ursa Mini is quite large with the Anton Bauer gold mount batteries, all the accessories, the handle, the viewfinder, just so much extra stuff. Plus, I'm bringing the 5D Mark IV with its own set of batteries. Now, granted, I was using EF lenses between the two. So lenses I was able to save a little bit on in terms of not having to bring as much, but it's still duplicative. You got to at least have two different lenses unless you want to be switching lenses as well. It got to the point where it was exhausting doing any type of production with any kind of efficiency. I always want things to be effortless. I want to focus on the content first. What is the photo? What is the video? Not how is it being made? I want that to be not the part I'm thinking about. By the time I'm out in the field, by the time I'm shooting, I don't want to be thinking about the gear. I want to think about the story I'm telling or the content that I'm capturing. And at that point in time, bouncing between these, there was a shoot that came up, and I didn't have the Ursa Minis. I was letting a friend borrow them. I didn't have the Ursa Minis. So I was like, oh shoot, it's a last minute production. I got to make this work. Let me just shoot it with the GH5. Because at that time, I did have the GH5. I used it for certain things, but it was always in my mind seen as like the lesser camera. Couldn't quite hold up to it. It was, the Ursa Mini was just the better choice. At that time, that's the way I thought. So I used the GH5 for this project and kind of suffered through it and thought, I'll make it work. I don't have the built-in NDs. I'm dealing with, I don't have as much dynamic range. I'm not shooting in a log profile. It just felt like not, the best. It felt like I under-delivered. But then when I went to look at the footage in post-production, by the time the edit was done, and if I considered in how I would have colored the Ursa footage anyway, by the time it went through color grading, I was looking and going, compared to other projects I'd shot with the Ursa Mini, I'm like, you really can't tell the difference. No viewer is really going to notice because I'm still using my skills, my expertise, my wisdom that I've cultivated over the years to do my best work regardless of the tool. And all of that junk of thinking the GH5 wasn't as good as the Ursa Mini was all more or less from me behind the scenes from a technical standpoint, thinking of, the bigger camera, the better camera versus the smaller camera, the hybrid, and it was all up here. It wasn't actually in the final product. Now, that may or may not be true for you, but I'm just telling you what I went through. So I thought, well, shoot, if I can film video and shoot photo all from the GH5, and the end result is more or less equivalent to what I'd be doing with the Ursa Mini, with the 5D Mark IV, why don't I just go with the GH5? So the kit is much smaller, it's more lightweight, it's easier to shoot. I never have to switch between cameras, and I really embraced the mindset of just loving what I'm shooting first and just getting the most out of the tool. And what ended up happening was I got so much better with the GH5 because now this new feature in my brain was unlocked that I didn't need something like an Ursa Mini to shoot something more filmic. And so I rolled with the GH5 for quite a while and got really good at getting the most out of that camera. Now, there's some considerations. There's some limitations. Obviously, the sensor size, you've got some limitations there. It's not full frame. It wasn't dealing with, good autofocus for video at that point in time. So there's things to work around. But in general, the end result was a lot easier to deliver because I took the weight off my back, literally taking the Ursa Mini off my shoulder and shooting with a much more run and gun style. Even though the Ursa Mini, I would say, is run and gun. What's lesser than run and gun? It's, I don't know, a point and shoot, I guess is a good way to say it. And then the GH6 came out, obviously, and that was a huge step up in terms of color, log, being able to actually shoot proper log, vlog. And so I went with that and just kept this mentality going of I can shoot photo, I can shoot cinema, all from this compact hybrid device. And that's really what I've embraced since that point in time. And now we have the GH7, obviously, is the newest Micro Four Thirds edition, but we have Lumix has the S5 Mark II. They finally have like good full frame cameras that are affordable, that do all the video features you would want. So, if you want full frame, Lumix has it with all the great video features. Again, that hybrid mentality, being able to have one device that can shoot photo and video or cinema, however you want to look at it, all in one. To this day, even with the newest releases from Blackmagic, and people ask me, why aren't you excited about the Blackmagic Pixis? It doesn't have IBIS, it doesn't have internal NDs, and it doesn't have, good phase detect autofocus. So you can stick with that more cinema style shooting. But for me, that was in the past. I went through that. I did that with the Ursa Mini, and the footage is beautiful. It is amazing. However, there's so many extra tools and little features and quirks that you get out of hybrid shooting with something like these, mirrorless photography cameras, that when you realize the benefits and how easy it makes the production, and you're not switching between a photo camera and a cinema camera, for me anyway, it just made so much more sense to have something now like the S5 Mark II or the GH7. And Sony has the equivalent cameras. Canon has the equivalent cameras. I want the one camera that can shoot photo and cinema all in one, so I can just be a Tographer, and it doesn't matter if I'm a photographer, a cinematographer, I can do both from the same package. There are plenty of projects that might justify a bigger expense, a bigger camera, a heavier footprint. That's all fine. I'm not saying this is the one-size-fits-all, for every project ever. But for general purpose, for me, it's worked out really, really well over the last 5 years, I'd say. It's kind of that time frame that you're looking at. between going from the right tool for the job, yes, having your cinema camera to do cinema and having your photo camera to do photo, that's kind of a good way to look at it. At least it was for me at that time when we didn't have these ultimate hybrids that we're getting into now, where they really are everything all in one. And you don't have to have duplicates of lenses. You don't have to have different types of batteries, the different chargers even. Because that's the thing, every little difference, every little variable adds so many more. Oh, different batteries, different chargers, different power supplies. Okay, well then I got to duplicate that all over here in this other kit. You're bringing more, probably twice as much. It can be twice as heavy in some cases. That's just not what I'm after. That's not my style anymore. It used to be, and I used to work through it. And really, in the grand scheme of things, it was still fun. I got a lot of enjoyment out of the content I was making. But I'm always looking for those next little 1% increments that's going to make my life that much easier. The thing for me, and has been for the last 10 years, is that these hybrid cameras need some kind of internal ND. That's a 1% improvement that you can make work. You can make work without it. You can use ND filters on the front of your lens. You can even find cool swing away filters that let you swap them in and out of place very easily. You can use variable ND filters, but I prefer not to because of the polarization that causes. So it's like you can make it work, but how much better would it be if that ND was built right in to a hybrid? I harp on it all the time because I think it's that important, even though for many people it would be a 1% increase in productivity. But for me, that 1% adds up because it's every shoot, it's every week, it's every day you're doing something. 1% adds up really, really quick. And if you stack that, if you compound that beyond just a day, beyond a week, over years of production, you're able to do so much more than you ever thought was possible in a way that's easier, cheaper, more efficient, more economical, just across the board. It makes so much sense. And it used to be back in the day, you would need to bring the bigger cameras because that was client expectations. But now I'm finding there's a lot more people who are savvy to social media, to content production, that realize you don't need the biggest camera. In fact, some people even laugh when they see the gigantic cameras come out, whether it's from the local news station or wherever. And it's kind of like, it looks like dinosaur tech now. It looks legacy. It used to be professional. It used to be broadcast. It used to be, wow, you've got really cool high-end fancy stuff. And now I'm noticing more and more people, not everyone, but more and more people are going, can't you just shoot that with your phone? That's the mentality that has unlocked in so many people from the client standpoint. Because they're going, you're shooting a TikTok. Don't you want to shoot that on a phone? Why would you bring a gigantic camera to make a TikTok video? Why would you bring a gigantic camera to do a YouTube short or an Instagram reel? It just doesn't make sense because people know how the sausage is made because they can do it themselves on their phone. So if I have something that bridges that gap that works for me but works for them, there's a case to be made. There will still be clients who demand the ultimate Alexa, Red, whatever, because they think that's cool and that's, more expense means better quality. But there's a lot more people now who I think don't even bat an eye. They don't even care, especially when I have a monitor and I have my camera rigged out. If I grab it here, if I have my camera rigged out in this kind of hybrid model, like this doesn't look like I'm taking pictures. It looks like I could take a picture, but it also looks like I might be shooting video, depending on how savvy the person watching is. So that's what Tographer is to me. It's the person, the type of person who wants to shoot photo and do really quality high-end photography, but at the same time wants to do cinematography as well. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned between those two styles, those two industries. There's so many ways of shooting video that have been changed by photography projects that I've done over the years. Understanding flash and sync speed just brings a better understanding to just shutter speed, I think, in general. And then vice versa with ND filters being more important, more prominent on the video side, but how that affects photography as well. So lots of lessons to be learned between the two. And I think to limit yourself, you can say, I'm just a photographer, and that can be a passion. And you can also just be a cinematographer, and that can be a passion. But for me, I love both so much. I just like making images, whether they're static or moving. It doesn't really matter to me. If I can do it with one camera that is simple, effortless, I just flip a switch and now I'm shooting photo, flip a switch, I'm back to video. There's no difference. I don't want to do, back in the day, a while ago now, Red, the digital stills and motion camera, DSMC, and the DSMC2 is how they branded. Basically the idea that you're shooting video, but any frame could be pulled as a photo. Well, I don't want to have to scrub through thousands upon thousands upon thousands of frames of video just to pull one photo. That's nice in theory, but in actual workflow, I don't know anyone who actually did that outside of the marketing promotions for Red. I'm sure some people did, but it never quite made sense to me that you would want to scrub through video frame by frame to find the perfect photograph. No, I like to take a photograph, and then I like to shoot video. Separate, but all on the same device. And for me, that makes the most sense.